All right. Um, Here again, we're just doing this beautiful series of just sisters who in New York who have had this experience of incarceration and have gone on, have come through that, have survived that, to use their voices and their talent and their creativity to influence people in all sorts of ways. And we think that is a beautiful thing. I want to talk a little bit about first why you became interested in the work around ending incarceration of women and girls, or if you really know for sure if that's what you're interested in. But what drew you to this conversation?
Um, for one, um, my experience I feel like was a little bit different because um, I've maintained my innocence throughout the entire duration of my case, and I still maintain that same innocence today. And I feel that the system that has been put in place in this country for me to believe and to work in my favor doesn't work in my favor, and it doesn't work in the favor of a lot of people who look like me. And there's a stigma that gets attached to you when you're a felon, and I'm a felon. And I feel like I don't have to wear that because that's what y'all say. Um, I feel like there are a lot of people like me that have fallen through the cracks of the justice system, and there was no help available for me. There was no help available to me, and I didn't know what to do. And so I feel like just being a part of this movement with everything that you guys have got going on, it's a small representation, from my behalf. And I'm always, I'm always do what I can because that's what makes me feel good. Um,
What is what how old were you when you were
I was 24. I was 24 years old.
mhm. And what was that experience like that you were when you had that experience, did you feel as though there were injustices that you just recognized that you wanted to talk about? Was there anything that made you feel like you wanted to move to action?
For one, I'm sorry, like, um, everything, everything. People don't talk about, people don't talk enough about how you have no control over nothing when you're in jail or you're in prison. You have no control over nothing. You can't even contact the people that are supposed to be representing you or are supposed to help you. And I feel like still to this day, I have a lot of animosity towards the attorney that represented me during that time. I won't say his name, but I feel like I couldn't believe how it was done. I was innocent and I didn't have to sit in jail for as long as I did. And I didn't have to plead guilty to crimes that I didn't commit. But I did. And I did that to get home. And I didn't know all of the adversities that I would be facing when I came home as a felon. That some of the opportunities that because I was such a bright-eyed and bushy-tailed kid all my life. I've never been in prison. I never been in trouble. I didn't have a troubled life. I had parents who loved me. And, even though I did grow up in a single mother, like a single parent household, I grew up with a lot of love. And that, I don't think anyone that knew me at that time saw that in my path. But that's the thing about being in prison. You meet people that you would never think oh, I'm meeting you here. When people meet me now, so many years after this has been over with and I'm over that time in my life, and I'll tell them my story and they'd be like, wow, you don't look like you've been to jail.
Well, what does that look like?
But what does that look like?
Yeah,
And it could happen to
it
anybody.
can
It could
happen to you
happen
anyway.
to you. It could happen to,
Sorry.
I mean, like you said, you were a lawyer, right? Your job is to basically be a part of that process for other people, and it can literally happen to anybody. I
Sorry.
stress that so much, like even with the COs, like the way that they treat us. I remember I had like gotten into a altercation with one of the COs there, and he had just knocked a tray of food out of this pregnant girl's hand, and it's like me. I didn't go to prison. Like I said, I went to county jail. I went to Monmouth County jail in New Jersey. So me being from New York, I kind of feel like I had a little bit of advantage over everybody else there just because of my mindset was a little bit different. Like we talking a small town in New Jersey where it's like it's not much going on. A lot of the people that are there for stealing or using drugs or something. Like I was one of the people in that jail at the time that had the more serious, like I was there, I was in a lot of trouble.
Hmm.
Like, so automatically I kind of felt like, all right, I can maneuver this. I know how to move. So when it came down to the pregnant ladies, the pregnant girls, and the older ladies, I always felt like the need to kind of lead in the sense where like we're gonna give the pregnant girls the double mats and the older ladies the double mats. And anything else after that it goes to the workers. And if we got after that, everybody else could get it. So when I had seen
So
this
you
incident,
were you had an organization mindset, an organizing mindset while you were
I tried
in that
to my
experience.
best because I'm a natural born leader. That's just who I am. And so I come into places where there's disorganization or dysfunction, and I could kind of um step into that role. And so not to take away from anybody that was, because I did time with a lot of stand-up women and a lot of women that were high up in the ranks and gangs and stuff like that. But I just felt like when it came down to like business and stuff, like I was the one running the store. I feel like I had every job that there was to have on on a pod, because for one, I was there the longest, and for two, like that's just how I move.
Hmm.
So it's not to take anything away from them, but that was kind of my role. And so when I had seen that, I kind of just saw that as an opportunity to really try to connect with the CEO, because his first thing, he knocked her plate out her hand and made her pick it up. So I'm like, yo, hey, why you do that? You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, that's a lady, she's carrying a baby. And his response to me was, if you don't want to get treated like an animal, don't go to prison. He's like, don't come to jail. And honest, at that moment, like I was so enraged that I was like, I need to say something, but I need to say it in a tone that the message could be received. I've always been a very understanding person, and so I try my best to communicate to people the way that I feel like they need to be communicated to. Sometimes when we're emotional and we're really passionate about something, we don't communicate in the same tone that we would when we're angry.
So sorry.
And so I took that opportunity to tell him, like, everybody everybody that comes to jail or comes to prison isn't a criminal. Everybody doesn't deserve to be here. It could be a very small instance where you could find yourself
And
at a crossroads, and it happens just like that.
right.
I went
It
to
is,
jail.
and as abolitionists, we don't believe that anybody belongs there because if it worked, we'd have the safest country on the planet. And so it doesn't work.
I believe that too.
And so we have to find ways to do that. And I know we're short for time, and I'm sorry about that
It's
because
okay.
you've said so many things, and I hope that besides my allergies that are kicking in like crazy, excuse me, I hope that we have, sorry,
It's okay.
ha,
Take your
we'll
time. Don't worry.
we'll have more opportunity to talk because we're hoping that this is just the beginning of a series of conversations that we'll have,
Absolutely.
and then have an opportunity to bring you back around the table to talk about some other issues. But one of the things that we were really interested in is because, as everybody else that was here today, you have a following, you have people who don't necessarily understand why the system needs to
You
change.
have to have been there and experienced it yourself to understand why it needs to change. You got people that just frown their nose at you and look at you funny and don't value you the same. But my thing is, I always I don't I'm not ashamed of that, because I know what I represent. And I know that at the end of the day, I might have been through that. That's not who I am. And that situation, in all reality, if I'm being completely honest, taught me so much about myself.
Mm,
I was, it was such a dark time. Like, I had lost my mom 4 years prior to me going to jail. And so
sorry.
it's okay. It's a very long time. And, that's life. This is all a part of life. Um,
But grief is not linear, so I'm sure
It's not, but
it can feel.
hey, I always said that those are some of my worst fear was going to jail and losing one of my parents, and I've already experienced both. So, I think that what you guys are doing is so needed, so necessary, because if there would have been an organization like this when I got arrested, maybe I wouldn't have did so much time, or maybe I would not have pled guilty to something that I didn't have to plead guilty to, and maybe there would have been a little bit more information available for me than what was at the time. So it's like we can't change the past, but we can move forward in the future, and we can make changes, even if it's a little one every day. It's gonna make a difference.
Do you think that we're trying to, really brainstorm and think about things in terms of women such as yourself with the platforms that you have to just help us to begin to raise awareness. We have a national campaign in the country called the FreeHer campaign, and the entire purpose of it is to, not another one. That's our mantra. Like, not another particularly young black brown girl
Her
landing on a prison
story,
bunk.
um, Bam Bam, what happened to her as a kid, can you imagine the label that society puts on her, on women like her, on women like me?
On 14-year-old
So
girls who she
what was
was talking
available for
about.
her? Like, where's the a kid, a child makes a mistake and you throw them in the garbage and say that's it, your life, you don't matter.
Right.
Me, although I was 24 years old, but in my mind, like, she said something that I resonated with so much. Like, I'm 33 years old. I do not feel 33.
Hmm.
I still feel like a kid. I feel like I lost so much time grieving, so much time just trying to figure out life. So then I get thrown in this situation, in this justice system, and I literally get lost, and there's no one to help me. None of my family know about this.
Hmm.
Like, my father, he did a lot of time in prison, but my father doesn't live in this country no more.
Hmm.
So the only person that I could talk to about this, I can't even get on a collect phone. Like, I can't call him. I can't call out the country on a jail phone.
Hmm.
So there needs to be there we this is needed. Period.
Do you think that you can be a part of, there's roles for everybody, and there's anybody can do anything. There's so much work that needs to be done. But do you think that with what young people are listening to, and girls and young women are listening to, which you guys are commanding those platforms, because they don't, like we were saying to Bam Bam, we don't information isn't disseminated the same way
It's
when I
not.
was your age. That happens
We went
now.
through that transition too, though, seeing the internet evolve, and we are a part of that generation, right?
Right.
Flip phones and
So
before
I
texting. So I get it. Me, I'm a radio personality on Power 1051. We got the number one radio show here in New York City. We have over 2 million listeners every show. So I always I will always promote this.
well, I want to say congratulations to you, just because of what the things that you were able to do to reach the place and transformation that you have accomplished in your life is just remarkable. I didn't know any of you guys before I met you, but I think that your accomplishments have just been amazing and beautiful, which speaks to the power of us, um, and in all of our genius. So
I really appreciate you for saying that. That makes me feel really warm. But in all reality, I feel like I haven't accomplished anything yet, and I feel like there's only but so much to go. Like, I can't stress this enough. Like, your sentence doesn't make you. You don't have to wear it. You don't have to be labeled that way if that's not what you want. It's been like, I feel like in this day and age, going to jail or going to prison has been glorified, which I never understood. But if we're talking about the real the real nitty gritty of it, I don't think that there was a situation that I went through in life, except for losing my mother, that has taught me more about myself.
Mm-hmm.
That has taught me who I really am.
Mm-hmm.
Going to jail, it strips you of everything, including your freedom,
Mm-hmm.
your clothes, your hair, everything that you think makes you beautiful, whatever, everything that you think makes you lit. Who are you now that you have nothing?
Mm-hmm.
Who are you? And although I still feel to this day that I didn't deserve to be in that position, I'm grateful for it,
Mm-hmm.
because that time sitting there, I got to reflect so much. I got to get to know myself. Who am I? How can I interact with other people?
Well, um, we want that same thing for all the baby girls coming up behind us, so that they don't have to land on a prison bunk to find that,
Yeah, that's
right?
the thing.
So that they don't have to go through this to find everything that I think we all went through a transformative experience while in prison and came out wanting and to do things differently. But we want that for our baby girls. Like I mentioned this, and I know we have to wrap, but I mentioned that they're building 40 new prisons in the country right now, and so we know who those prisons are being built for.
And they
So,
don't even talk about the overcrowding. Like,
well,
even them building these new prisons, right? It's a horrible idea.
it's
Because
horrible because
you're planning on locking up more
well,
people.
the generations, the same people, we as black people, black and brown people in this country disproportionately make up the prison populations. And so when you tell a 60-year-old woman like me that you're building 11 new women's prisons at, $100 million just to put shovel to the ground. The New Orleans women's, the Louisiana women's prison is already at a price tag of $1 billion. What you're saying to me is that you're expecting my daughters, my grandchildren, and the grandchildren and daughters of women like me to fill those prison bunks. And so this is why we, as black formerly incarcerated women at the National Council, say not another one. And so we have to begin to connect, like stitch together like the quilts we do for the sisters who are inside. We have to begin to stitch ourselves together in a way that we can use whatever talents we have, whether it's a voice, a platform, to really talk about the Free Her campaign. And did you know that this is just our year of raising public awareness so that sisters know? Did you know that there is an actual campaign to stop the flow of women and girls into these prisons? And how do we get there? Because we can get there.
We can. We absolutely can. Even if you've never been to jail or prison yourself, and everyone, I feel
Is
like,
directly
knows
affected, right?
everyone is directly affected.
In
Whether
our
it's been a
communities.
parent, a friend, a cousin, a brother,
And what you
we're
don't
all
want is for
affected.
somebody else that you love to have to go through that experience, because if we turn this corner, if we change this, if we flip this around, guess what we now have? Healthy, thriving people who then create healthy, thriving communities.
And I feel like also too, they call it the Department of Rehabilitation, and they do nothing to rehabilitate you. I was looking on YouTube, and I was um watching some videos on prisons in other countries and how they are really there to rehabilitate. So you have prisons in Europe that they have, so many programs. They're set up to where, like, they have privacy. They have, like, yes, you're away from your family, and yes, you are serving time, but this is literally meant to correct and rehabilitate. Versus the prison system here, I feel like they literally set you up to keep messing up. They set you up to keep messing up. They put you in an environment where it's sink or swim. And sometimes that involves committing more crimes while you're already in prison for committing a crime. and they do nothing to rehabilitate you. They do nothing to help you when you are coming out into the real world. I did absolutely no time compared to a 10-year sentence, but I can't imagine what I would have been, what it would have been like trying to readjust into society after doing so much time. The first man that I ever loved in my life, he's about to come home in 2 3 weeks from doing a 13
Oh,
year prison
congratulations.
sentence, you know, and we're going through that, and my brother, also my little brother, he's also unfortunately serving a 13-year sentence in the federal, in a federal penitentiary. What is gonna what is it gonna be like for them
That transition
readjust
back
that
home.
transition into society? It's crazy.
Well, I think the work that we're doing is finding ways to address that, and we unapologetically do focus on women and girls, but women and girls are connected to men and boys.
Because
And so
before I
so
ever stepped foot in a jail, I knew what it was because of my experience visiting my dad, visiting,
yeah.
my ex, visiting.
So it's become, incarceration has become, and I know we have to wrap, but I just want to say this. It's become a fabric of our lives in our communities. And what we want to do is to figure out, how do we stop the flow of our women and girls into these places? Because if we do that, it means it's going to affect everybody in a good way. But we have to first start by raising awareness that there is actually a campaign that is led by Black formerly incarcerated women, not just Fed women, state women. Our following is thousands of women strong, and they are women who are determined to be a part of this campaign and to find out more about all of the working parts and what part they are most comfortable fitting into. And so we really wanted to come and have an opportunity to share with you.
I think it's an easy. I mean, it's an easy win. Like, I know the injustices that I faced, and I'm still mad about them today. This is years ago. So we're talking, I was released already now, 2017. This was
Mhm.
years ago. And I'm still upset about the way that I was treated. I'm still upset about the things that happened to me in there. They're not going to stop unless we do something about it. And so campaigns like this, you know, are we going to stop every female from ever getting arrested? No, but we can change what happens after you're arrested. We maybe can even change the actions that you take before you get arrested. Maybe if you hear my story, if you hear her story, hear your story, maybe that will make you stop and think. So I think that what you guys
I
is
think we
doing is
certainly,
necessary.
with reimagining communities in that model, which was created not by just us, we did 2.5 years of listening tours around the country. We spoke to the most directly affected women, not just women who had been to prison, but women who cared for us while we were inside of prison, women who took care of our children, women who you know, did whatever. And that's where this came from. This did not just come from the National Council. We built the platform to bring in the information, but we did a 2.5 listening tour in the most entangled and incarcerated communities around the country. And all of the women and girls in those communities came to community meetings and to town halls, and gave their opinion and their thoughts and brought their experiences to the table. And out of all of that, we took another 6 months, so 3 years, to come up with this platform that is now shaping reimagining communities in the FreeHer campaign. And we know for sure that we can end incarceration of women and girls. Now, is it going to be a gray area? Yes, of course there is. Anytime you're doing that. And are we going to meet a lot of opposition? Because
Yes.
even at the National Council, for years, we have already faced down opposition because we unapologetically advocate on behalf of women and girls. Because, you
We
think
will
of every
never.
reason in the book and they've thrown it at us.
Yeah, and
Um,
we have some people whose minds will never change. Some people will always be stuck in their box, and that's okay.
right,
As long as we're doing what we have to do
right.
and we're seeing our progress, that's all that matters. Like, I mean, once I feel like anybody who has been, whether directly or indirectly affected by uh, the prison situation going on in this country, I feel like it automatically, everyone's triggered. Everyone's
Yeah,
triggered. Everyone has a story to tell.
yeah.
Everyone wants to be involved. And I feel like it wouldn't take much to get people on
Yeah.
board with this, or to
Yeah.
get them to listen, or to get them to believe in it, or what the
And it's a
goal is here.
beautiful model because
It
it's
is.
hyper local. It's on your own block. And so we know that we can get this done. But I want to say thank you. I hope this is just one of many
Yes.
conversations that we have to continue to lift up the Free Hair campaign and to really bring women in. But again, we're having the vigil, the 3-day vigil, as kind of
In DC.
a Hail Mary to
Yes.
Biden to just say, listen, you got to let these women out. Michelle West, Lazar Daz, Connie Edwards, Roberta Bell, these sisters that have just been decades long. Michelle surpassed her 30th, she's on her 32nd year now of incarceration. It's just for drug convictions. I
That's
mean,
and I'm gonna say that too. You know, I I was charged with maintaining and operating a drug production facility for heroin and cocaine, which was crazy to me. My bail at the time was $500,000. Okay. I was there incarcerated with a woman who was there for killing an infant in the same jail, and her bail was $250,000. She was there for murder, and I'm there for drugs, and my bail was double. So, like,
it the whole system, and we're an abolitionist organization, so we don't draw the line of who we uh politicize and provide uh advocacy on behalf of, because a woman who kills her child, there's an element of mental illness, there's something happening,
yeah, I truly
there's
believe.
some level of harm that she is enduring that will bring somebody to the state of mind where they would cause that level of harm to a child. And so even that,
To be fair,
she, like, we don't
yeah,
believe
no, I don't. I
that
don't believe that either.
that county jail was where even somebody who has created that level of egregious harm should be, because those places, prisons and jails, only cause further harm, and they never will
Absolutely.
allow. We spend so much money incarcerating people instead of figuring out what's the science behind what brought her to a point. What brought a person to a point where they could do that to a child?
So I don't to like, even after my during my time there with her, that woman had always maintained her innocence, and even during my time there, I also believed it, although she was found guilty. I just said it to basically say her. It was just about the fairness and the
And
opportunity
what
and
they call the
bail.
drug war, what those intentional sentences were, what those bails were, what all of those things were during particularly during the crack epidemic and the heroin epidemics, which they didn't give a shit about. Now it's a public health issue. When our people were going in, it was just nothing but a war on us.
Yeah.
And so I hear what you're saying. I just wanted to make it
Yeah.
clear in terms of our
No,
position about that.
absolutely. Like,
But
no crime, or no one
and
charge is better
and it's about
or more deserving than
incapacitation.
other. I
Like
believe that
when
as
you
well.
cause levels of harm, but we only came up with that because of the sisters who had committed levels of harm to that degree, went into a study group together to figure out, well, what are the inroads and what are the off ramps to stop those things before they happen. But what's the response? We all
No
come
one
from
helps
communities
us.
where we
That's the
know.
thing. No one helps us. We have no help here.
Right.
Black women, Hispanic women, Latino
Nobody's
women,
coming
we
to
have
save us.
nobody helps us. And so they'll wait till you literally are at your wits end, you're ready to lose your mind. They'll lock you up and then say
Right.
it was your fault. But it's
Right.
like,
And where is that? And that's the beauty of reimagining communities, I think, because all the components of it came from the sisters around the country who have been in that place, right? And so and then we attached to it the Free Her campaign to stop the flow of particularly our next generation of Black and brown baby girls into those, because they're building those prisons for them, and we're not going to let that happen.
yeah.
So I want to say thank you to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having
Thank
me.
you for
Thank
your
you for
voice, your transparency. Thank you for your brilliance. Congratulations. I don't think didn't know the heights of what you do that you've reached, and I'm really proud of you, and thank you.
I really appreciate that. Thank you. And we're only going up from here.